Whoever serves me must follow me. So Jesus is not asking any of us, anybody ever in history, to do anything that he didn't do himself. And so the laying down of one's life, which is a radical ask for God, but it does happen, doesn't it? Where God asks people to lay down their life for him as a witness of their love for him. And so we celebrate one of those people today, St. Lawrence. St. Lawrence, who died a martyr in Rome in the early church in the 2nd or 3rd century, I think it's the 3rd century. And so he was a deacon, and the story goes that there was a terrible persecution happening in Rome, and all of the officials of Rome that outranked him in the clergy were already martyred. And so he was left, and he was the treasurer of the church. That was one of the reasons that they held off on executing him, because they wanted him to get all the treasure of the church. They wanted to get their hands on the treasure of the church. And so what he did was he gave it all away. Gave it all away. And so when it came time for him to kind of present the treasure of the church, he came with some of the poor of Rome, the blind and the lame, and the needy. And he said, "This is the treasure of the church." And so that is a beautiful story. Now, obviously, the church needs material resources to run. I mean, the temple needed material resources to run, and we can get all that out of whack, and that's been a temptation throughout history. But the treasure of the church, let me ask you, what is your treasure? What is your treasure? And I hope that your treasure is your faith. I hope your treasure is the charity of God that dwells in you. You know, what is your treasure? In St. Paul's letter to the Corinthians, he speaks about giving. Whoever sows sparingly will reap. To sow is to plant seed. And we have the image in the gospel of the sower who is taking scoops of handfuls of seed and scattering it everywhere, on the rocks, in the thorns, on the path. This generosity of God who sows out the seed. Whoever sows sparingly will reap sparingly. God is able to make every grace abundant for you. You know why we have gifts? You know why we have life? You know why we have things? We have things that we can give them away. That's why God entrusts things to us, so that we have the capacity to be generous. And in giving, we can receive, because we cannot outgive God. So Lawrence makes this kind of beautiful statement. He gives away, in this moment of desperation, as the empire is going to come in and take everything from the church anyway, he says, well, let me just liquidate it all. And it leaves a beautiful lesson for us. One more little anecdote about Lawrence is that he was killed by being cooked. You know, I know that's not a very appetizing thought, but he was grilled. And so he was held over a fire, and they tortured him by fire, and it was an agonizing death, you can imagine. But the kind of comes down to us that he says, "You can turn me over now. You know, I'm done on that side." So whether he actually said that or not, I don't know. But so Lawrence gave his life, and Lawrence is kind of this example of his treasure was his faith. And we remember again today that God is the giver, and he gives to us so that we may give. And when we give, we receive. And he always leaves us with more to be able to give.